You know what I'm gonna say. The children. I hope and I pray that these kids never experience abuse again. I hope and pray that this plea agreement is designed to protect those kids from any future harm. From what police have said, those kids were starving and they had been tied up. That is beyond appalling, especially for a mother who became famous and had millions of followers and built herself as a parenting expert. She played up the shock factor with her parenting style of teaching her kids tough lessons. And today, when she goes before the judge, we'll see if Ruby Franke has learned her own tough lesson. That's my opening statement on this Monday morning. Let me know if you like it. Right now, I want to give you what's on your daily docket.
I'm not gonna lie, we was all scared, you know what I mean? It wasn't just them two, we was all scared, you know what I'm saying? Maurice, Larry, all of us, we was scared, man.
You were scared?
Yeah, we was young, you know what I'm saying? We just went along with it.
All right, here's a look at some of the cases we're following for you today on Court TV. In Kentucky, court resumes at 12:30 p.m. in the witness to murder trial. The state rested on Friday, so we could see closing arguments this afternoon. In Utah, Ruby Franke due in court at 1 p.m. where she might be pleading guilty in her child abuse case. And in Florida, Corey Hill is set to appear at 8:30 a.m. for his in-jail arraignment for the murder of his estranged wife. On Friday, we saw some justice for 15-year-old Timothy Vander Ark, a jury finding his mother, Shonda Vander Ark, guilty of his murder. And she had waived her right to appear in court Friday due to a medical issue. The jury spent just over an hour deliberating before arriving at their verdict. And afterwards, Vander Ark's attorney spoke with Court TV, calling this the worst case he's ever seen.
I passed the bar in 1986. This is the worst case I've ever handled. It's not even, I've handled cases with serial murders. This is the worst case I've ever handled. You do your job. The facts were terrible. The outcomes were worse. You do your job. You come in there, and your job is to represent this woman and to press for her point of view, and that's what you do. If you do that, and the prosecutor does that, and the jury does their end, and the judge does his end, justice gets done in the end, and that's the objective. Now comes the time where you have to sleep after the end. I mean, once you do all the intellectual stuff, the emotionality of it kicks in, and you got to sit down and you got to sleep with these facts and those images that are forever in my mind.
Vander Ark set to be sentenced on January 29th. And guess what? Her son Paul is going to be back in court later this week to decide whether he will go to trial or plead to first-degree child abuse. Speaking of child abuse, let's turn now to the very latest on another alleged bad mom. Court TV crime and justice correspondent Matt Johnson is live in the studio with us this morning for what we can expect for Ruby Franke's appearance. Matt, good morning.
Julie, good morning. Happy Monday. Momfluencer Ruby Franke expected as early as today to plead guilty in Utah after, quote, resetting her moral compass. That's according to her attorney, who spoke with several outlets, including ABC News. The mom YouTube celebrity was charged with 7 counts of child abuse. Both she and her business partner, Jody Hildebrand, were arrested back in August after one of Franke's kids climbed out of a window at Hildebrand's house and ran to a neighbor for help, police say. 2 of Franke's kids appeared malnourished, emaciated, and had injuries from duct tape. Here's part of the 911 call.
He's emaciated, he's got tape around his legs, he's hungry, and he's thirsty. This kid has obviously been, I think he's been detained. He's obviously covered in wounds.
Both Hildebrand and Franke remain in custody this morning since their arrest. It's unclear if Franke will flip on Hildebrand as part of her plea deal. We do know that her husband, he's leaving. Kevin Franke has filed for divorce and says that he didn't know anything about the abuse. Today's hearing, as you mentioned, is scheduled 1 p.m. Eastern, Julie.
I know you're going to be all over this one for us. Matt Johnson live in the studio. Thank you very much. I want to bring in now a special guest. He is a former criminal defense attorney, famously represented Jodi Arias, saved her life, and I always say he deserves a medal for all the great work he did on that case. Attorney Kirk Nurmi is on the show this morning. Good morning, my friend. Nice to see you on this Monday. Oh boy, I want to talk to you about Ruby Franke, Kirk. Tell me what you think would be a fair plea agreement for her and why, please.
Well, good morning, Julie. You know, it's hard to say what's fair, right? I mean, we think about the extent of this abuse. It's hard for me to think that anything below double digits, below 10 years, is acceptable. I mean, this was methodical abuse. She used her kids to gain fame, right? She abused her kids really to gain fame. And that to me seems unforgivable. And we also have here, you know, this plea agreement out there now, Julie, where she's really accepting responsibility to some extent. And that's where I would take issue with your opening statement, because it looks like she wants to defer responsibility to her co-defendant. And we've talked about this before, Julie. Image is so important to female defendants, and she's looking to rehab her image, reset her moral compass, turn on her friends. So I don't know that her acceptance of responsibility is complete. That's why I'd like to see 10 years or more.
We need to see what she says today, because the way her attorney worded it, he said she wants to take responsibility for her part in the harm done for her kids. So we'll see today what exactly that is, what it looks like. I think it's very clear she's going to roll on Jodi Hildebrandt. Very clear. It's all the friendship's out the window. It's gone if she can spare herself some more years. But I like what you're saying about prison, Kirk. So, okay, let's talk about this. So you think prison is something these prosecutors ought to be looking at, prison versus something like house arrest or maybe jail, big differences. Tell me why you think prison would be proper for Franke, Ruby Franke.
Because think about this, Julie, this was methodical. This wasn't just a byproduct of some emotional outbursts or what have you. I mean, this was her platform, right? I mean, she's abusing these children in order to help her gain internet fame, to become what you said, a momfluencer, right? And it's methodical, it's planned out. It's, you know, you think about Timothy Ferritter and putting his child in a box. She's doing some of these things. She's duct taping them, she's starving them, she's doing all these different things. It's really, again, I keep using the word methodical. It's not a slip of thinking. It's based on long-term, deeply disturbed thinking that I think needs to be punished, and punished harshly.
Right. I'm with you on that, Kirk. I've thought a lot about this. And in addition to prison, one thing I was noting in my open is contact with the kids. I'm certainly not saying that she should have contact with them. I think if she does, it's got to be supervised going forward. I can't imagine a judge saying, oh, and you'll have custody after you do your time. I think there's got to be adult supervision for those minors. Would you talk to me about that, Kirk, and the complexities of that? Because it seems to me that we're going to have a family court case, you know, kind of running parallel with this criminal case.
Yeah, you know, off the top of my head, I don't know how old the youngest is, but I talk about that 10-year mark too, because then we get the kids to be a little older. We get them closer to adulthood, where that kind of becomes less of an issue with the majority of the kids. So I think that's important here too. And we have the father is seeking divorce, claiming he doesn't know anything about the abuse. Whether that's true or not, I guess we don't know. But ultimately getting those kids away from her, away from that abusive environment, and restoring their health, that's so important. And I think that long-term imprisonment for their mother, to make sure that they know that what their mother did to them is wrong, so they're not in any way forgiving or understanding or blaming themselves. I think that's so important.
Right, Kirk, great points. And they've got 7 counts to play with, this prosecutor's office. They've got a lot they can do with this plea agreement against her. And I know if I were them, I would stack, think terms of probation so that she's really on a lengthy period of probation after she is done with her confinement. But we're not the prosecutors on it, Kirk, so we'll see what they offer her today, if anything. We know this is just coming from her attorney. Maybe they're hoping she's going to get a deal. We'll see if they can actually strike up one, as you know. Kirk, you're going to come along with us as we head into what's trending in true crime. My friends, this is what we have next on Opening Statements.
I know a lot of people didn't love him, but not anyone who would, hate him. He meant well. Everyone that knew him knows that he means well, but he can be a little, argumentative.
Well, it's Wendy Adelson there. Could she be charged in her ex-husband's murder? We're taking a close look at her police interview right after Dan Markel's death, and our legal eagles are weighing in. Plus, Stephen Smith's family attorney is joining us live on the show to give us some more insight into the announcement that Smith's phone has finally been unlocked. A triple murder in the Bluegrass State.
Callous and casual was the first murder. The two that followed were calculated and cruel.
Bryce Rhodes, charged with killing a man.
And then brutally executing two teenagers who might have witnessed it.
Now, after numerous outbursts in court, the defendants will face a jury.
Your job is to do your job, not to worry about me. That's what I'm saying. Well, I worry about me.
The Witness to Murder trial today, only on Court TV.
Do you know anybody that would have a beef against your ex-husband?
He's, oh God.
I hate to ask it now, but I have to do it now. You understand, right?
I understand. He had friends. He always meant well, but he would sometimes rub people the wrong way.
Now to what's trending in true crime. That was just some of Wendy Adelson's police interview right after her ex-husband's death. And you can see very clearly her reaction to the troubling news. Take a look.
There was a shooting at your home, or your ex-husband's home, okay? Your ex-husband, excuse me, Daniel, all right, has been taken to the hospital. He's not going to survive.
Oh my God.
Okay?
I'm sorry. I messaged her around this morning. What happened?
Now we know that Wendy and Dan Markel had a tumultuous divorce, and while her reaction could be genuine given her brother's recent murder conviction and her mother's recent arrest on murder allegations, we're asking the question this morning: might Wendy have known about the murder for hire plot to kill her husband? And could she be next to be charged? Let's bring in our guest, still with me, former criminal defense attorney Kirk Nurmi, jury consultant and human behavior expert Susan Constantine, and attorney and creator of the Jury Trial Mentor YouTube channel, Carl Steinbeck. Good morning to you all. Wonderful to have you along with us. Susan, my friend, I want to begin with you, please, and what you saw analyzing Wendy Adelson there just now.
Well, first of all, when she was asked the question, is that what you notice is that when your forehead, there's no movement, but she's shaking her head yes before the actual question. So she was already anticipating the question. And then on top of that, what I'm looking at is her forehead movement. And, you know, respectfully, she's got Botox, so she doesn't really show that emotion correctly. But so I'm looking at the bottom region of her face, and when she's crying, it does look like an authentic cry, but she could be crying for all different reasons. But what I'm looking at is when she realized what that question was, she was already waiting for it. Then she's now going into reaction mode. Now then she goes into management, which means the performance. So when I'm looking at this, there is a duration within that 1 second period from the stimulus, and there was a cluster there. It's 3 different things we're looking for in 3 different channels, right? Two different areas within a 7-second period. So it's called the 3-2-7. So in my opinion, she knew.
Oh, Susan, this is good. I've got another clip for you to look at in just a couple of minutes. I want to go to Kirk and Carl next and see what they think about the chances of Wendy being charged. Kirk Nurmi, what do you say, please?
You know, Julie, I remember when Charlie was on trial and we saw Wendy on the stand, and all her testimony couldn't be used against her in prosecution, future prosecution. The questions, the evidence behind those questions that were posed by the prosecutor made me believe that Wendy would be charged right after Charlie was convicted, but she hasn't yet. So to me, and we're weeks out away, we're weeks removed, right? And now Donna has been charged, her mother, but not her. And it makes me wonder now, why not? Why haven't the prosecutors moved? And to me, the only logical conclusion you can make off that is they don't feel that they have enough evidence. So I'm beginning to wonder if something's going to need to change, you know, like with Donna, one of those jailhouse phone calls that she had with Charlie, something of that nature that would move the case forward, because there'd be no other reason for prosecutors not to charge Wendy at this time.
I'm with you, Kirk. Carl Steinbeck, last but certainly not least, I want to get your take on Wendy, please.
Well, it has taken a long time to go after the Adelsons. It's been way too many years. But there's a new prosecutor there at Tallahassee, Jack Campbell's, as of 2016. And he's unleashing these prosecutors to go after the Adelsons. And every time Wendy is used to testify, there is a conviction. So they've used her every time to get a conviction against others. And every time she does testify, she comes across terribly. And she has actually shown that she is involved in this and had prior knowledge. In fact, at the closing argument of her brother's trial, where he was convicted of murder one, she actually accused her of framing the boyfriend to be the fall guy, to take responsibility by the police and law enforcement, and to be falsely accused of murder of her ex-husband. So she was totally involved in this. In fact, there's well over 100 indicators of the things she's done that circumstantially prove she had prior knowledge and was also doing things during the day of the murder, as well as the days after, that show that she was absolutely a part of this family hit job.
I'm with you, Carl. One of the things that really troubled me, and we've got a clip that, Susan, I'd love for you to analyze next, is where she's asked about how, coincidentally, she's driving by the homicide scene on the day of. And when I heard it at trial, I thought pants on fire. And now we get to see her reaction when she talks about it with police. Let's watch together now.
Let me get over this hump, okay? Can we do that first? All right. Can you tell me what time you left your house this morning?
Yeah, I was there. I didn't leave this morning. I didn't leave until noon.
Okay.
Oh my God. And I tried to drive up Trescott, and I saw that it was blocked.
It was blocked at some point. I'm not sure what time it was blocked.
And I just thought, oh, there's maybe some trees down or something.
Susan Constantine, what do you think?
So when I'm watching her expressions, and in my line of work, you know, there's 27 different indicators that I'm looking for that are associated with deception. And there's timing in it. There's the duration between the emotions. And when I'm watching her performance, she's very high in the chest right here. That's hyperventilation. Why would she be hyperventilating when it's right down here in kinesthetic? This is the emotion part of you. The sadness comes from here, not hyperventilation. This is fight or flight response. So when I'm watching that very fast, rapid breathing, and then the facial expressions being stretched to the side, and you'll notice that they don't turn down, she's not showing genuine sadness. And the fact that she's got Botox in the front, you can't see the corners turn up, but I would naturally see more movement in her bottom region of her face, that she was sad or remorseful or concerned. And I don't see it. It doesn't connect. And when it doesn't connect, there's a reason for it.
Susan, thank you for all of that. Ooh, now we know Charlie Adelson is locked up for the rest of his life for his help getting rid of Professor Dan Markel, the father of Charlie's two nephews. Now, Charlie was sentenced just last week and still maintains his innocence. But no one from his family spoke out on his behalf. What do those things tell you? Now, according to a jail call between him and his mom, Donna, his own sister, doesn't even ask about how he's holding up.
We know you never asked anything about your brother. This is 8 o'clock last night. But we just got off the phone with him, and the first thing he asked was, how's Wendy holding up? I didn't have the heart to tell him that you never called us or asked about him. I just said, we weren't up to phone calls right now. Everyone looks to protect you. I bet you've got a lot to think about. So she says this morning, I thought she'd be racing over here last night. Dear Mom, I know you are upset by the verdict, but the anger directed at me is not justified. I'm not responsible in any way for Charlie's situation. I am not guilty because I did not do anything wrong, and I was not involved in any way with Danny's death. Also, as you know, I do know, my lawyer has advised me not to talk to my family or anyone else about this case.
Oh, seems like Sister Wendy's giving her family the cold shoulder. Do you think Charlie regrets his actions? I mean, think about it. Who stood to gain the most from this homicide? As sick as this plot was, who stood to benefit the most? Wendy. And then maybe Donna and Harvey. Charlie probably, I would argue, stood to benefit the least in this. Do we think he's got regret? Let's bring back in our panel. Kirk Nurmi, what do you say on this, please?
Boy, it's hard to say, Julie, what's really going on in his head. You think about the demented thinking that led him to where he's at. What thinking process is he using now, right? But, you know, there's an arrogance and hubris about this entire family with what they did and the way they have operated them with, you know, with impunity as it relates to the father of their grandchildren or their nieces. So, you know, in that regard, he probably does. Charlie probably still feels like he's innocent in some way and doesn't regret it, like he didn't do anything. And right now he has hope. Hope's a valuable commodity to people that are in prison. So I wouldn't be surprised if he's thinking, oh, this is going to get overturned on appeal. No problem. This is just a little setback. When in reality, once that hope is taken away, then I think there'll be space for regret.
I like how you put that, Kirk. Carl, what do you think about Charlie? Does he have regret?
I don't see any regret from him right now. What I see him doing is deflecting and pointing the fingers at other people who are responsible for where he's at. So if you listen to all these recordings that they've released in the last few days, what he's really doing is pointing the finger at the prosecutor, saying that she didn't have any evidence. She had this graphic presentation during the closing argument that was absolutely brilliant and tied it all together. And he's saying that none of that was evidence. It was all just texts and emails, and it just cherry-picked stuff that appealed to the jury, who he basically was saying was dumbed down to a third-grade level. And all the good jurors got kicked off by the prosecution. He's also blaming somewhat his sister now, too. He's saying that Wendy's testimony, he's saying things like, what are the odds she drives on Trescott within an hour of the murder? A reasonable juror is going to look at that and go, this doesn't make any sense. And he's saying a lot of stuff like that. So he's already starting to really target his sister as well, which is really interesting.
And I know those prosecutors right now probably have the headphones on listening to those jail calls. Susan Constantine, take us home quickly before we hit that break. Do you think Charlie's got regret?
I don't think he's got regret, but what I see is a high level of stress and worry, and I also see a lot of cognitive load. So as he's hearing testimony, what he's doing, he's trying to figure out in his mind how he's going to use that information to create his storyline around it. So I think he's carrying a lot of information in his brain. That's why we see the cognitive load, but I don't see sadness and regret from him at this point.
Oh, your insight is fantastic. Susan Constantine, thank you so much. Kirk Nurmi, big thank you to you as well. We have to say goodbye to you both. Carl's going to come along with us as we talk about what is tipping the scales in the Bryce Rhodes case. But when we come back right after this, we're going to get some more insight into the big announcement that Stephen Smith's phone has been unlocked. The Smith family attorney, Eric Bland, is joining us live on the program to respond to the claims that the phone's been unlocked for years. Plus, we're gearing up for court to start back up in Kentucky for the murder trial of this guy